You are listening to The Underground Subway with host David Alston, a podcast dedicated to giving you the strategies to live a free and better life. Here is David Alston.
Hi, I'm David Alston, and welcome to the Underground Subway. This podcast is dedicated to one thing, and it is about giving you the strategies, the ideas, the concepts needed to live a free and better lifestyle. What do I mean by free? What is a life of liberty? Well, in order to have a life that's full of liberty and freedom, it means that you're able to think, to move, to act, to live life to its fullest without any restraints. The question is, are you living life with restraints? The things that we've gone through, my friends, all of us have struggled and had bad moments in our lives. Are they still holding us back? You never know. You could be holding on to something from your past that may be the trigger or the thing that is holding you up. My grandmother, as I often say, was first cousins with Harriet Tubman, and Harriet Tubman said something powerful. She said this, she said that I could have, I would have, I should have freed a whole lot of more slaves if only they knew that they were slaves. So many people were in bondage and didn't know that they weren't free. The question is something that we've experienced in life holding us back and we don't know it? This podcast is dedicated to revealing those chains, revealing those things, as well as giving you the strategies on how to be free. And that's why every time we come to you on the subway, we bring you quality and qualified guests who will share their life experiences with you to help you. Let me give you a little disclaimer and help me to live a better and freer life. My guest for this edition of the Underground Subway is none other than Agape Garcia. Let me share something about my guest with you. There's an acronym called BYIS. BYIS. Let me tell you about that and my guest. Be your incredible self. That's what BYIS is. It best describes Miss Garcia and best describes her tenacious attitude towards empowering others. Agape Garcia, over the past 35 years, has navigated through domestic violence, privacy, safety, vulnerability, and the mindset to endure personal adverse events in her life. Her survival of a double attempted homicide while 8 months pregnant by the father and the desperation to survive became the catalyst to the foundation of BYIS while achieving an undisputed outlook on independence. During her journey to overcome, Garcia learned that extreme independence is a trauma driven response and a natural one which can be defeated through focus, self awareness, and intentional control. Through her walk, harsh lessons brought on by extreme independence resulted in areas of her life being sabotaged repeatedly. Her personal journey of post traumatic growth has led Garcia to dedicating her life in development and transformational programs, various forms of coaching, certification courses, and establishing a nonprofit to help real time victims. Her commitment is to provide lifelong transformational habits that can restore your powerful internal sense of control. One of her personal statements says, "You don't live anywhere but in your head." That is why some of her laser focused teachings are on aligning your mental and emotional belief system. I want to welcome and I want you to help me welcome to the Underground Subway, Ms. Agape Garcia. Thank you for joining the Underground Subway, my friend.
Wow, thank you for having me, kind sir. I appreciate it. It is such an honor to be here.
The honor is all mine. Trust me, it's all mine. Thank you so much. Well, my friend, let's get into it. Let's talk about some things. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about some of your experiences in life. Reading your bio is just overwhelming in itself because, to talk about being, to go through two murder attempts. I mean, most of us that are listening have never gone through one, but yet alone to go through two. And that had to be very traumatic as well. I remember going through a car accident and I thought that was a big deal. And, and here you've gone through a couple of murder attempts. But I want to deal with something in your bio that kind of jumped out at me. And I like to ask this question. I'm originally from a city called Philadelphia, in which there's a movie out called Philadelphia, in which Denzel Washington, he asks the question of one of the witnesses, and he says, "Explain it to me like I'm a 6 year old." And so I want to deal with something in your bio, and if you could just explain it to me like I'm a 6 year old, I would appreciate it. I'm used to the term PTSD because I went through that with a car accident. But I noticed in your bio, it said that your personal journey of post traumatic growth. Now, I've heard of post traumatic stress disorder. What exactly, like I'm a 6 year old, is post traumatic growth? What is that?
Okay, yes, it's actually fairly new. It was first identified in the early 1990s by two psychologists. I believe their names were Dr. Tedeschi and Dr. Calhoun. And in all fairness, it's in all simplicity, it's my personal definition is based on an abundance of my own personal research, and a doctor actually defining my character as an example of post-traumatic growth. Simply put, it's a positive psychological change or shift that an individual can experience after a traumatic event or life crisis, right? I think that life crisis and traumatic event is the
Hmm.
definition of each other. So,
Wow.
PTG is a positive psychological change or shift that an individual can experience after a life crisis.
Wow. Not, I mean, an event or a life crisis. What's the difference? Is just something happening or?
Right. So, I think, in my personal opinion, life crisis and traumatic event is synonymous. So a life crisis could be, gosh, a loss of a baby, a loss of a
Mhm.
child.
Right.
That's a life crisis. That's also a traumatic event.
Right.
It's
Wow.
very synonymous.
So tell us about some of the experiences that you had that were life-changing events. I mean, we read some of them, but reading, me reading it as an intro just scratches the surface, I'm sure. Let us hear from your voice, some of the things that you went through that that you've used to fuel you stepping toward your destiny and your purpose.
Okay. Well, I would have to take it back to childhood. Um, at age 2, my mother had abandoned me and my baby sister. By age 3, I had lost my baby sister to cancer. At that same time, my father checked out. So I was pretty much inheriting every single void a child could possibly experience in life. I didn't know any better. I was 3, 4, 5, 6. I didn't know.
Hmm.
I know now, though, that, a lot of my suffering came from being extremely neglected. I lost my mother, I lost my sister, and my dad was checked out. So, I spent a lot of back in the day, in those days, we were able to walk to school in the morning, no matter how young you were. That was my situation. Kindergarten, I'm walking to school.
Hmm.
And the school I went to was actually closer to the cemetery where my sister was born, opposed to the house I lived in. And I spent a lot of time there doing homework and bonding because I had nowhere else to go. So I would have to say that when we are children, we have this sense of clarity within ourselves. We have this courage that's almost given to us upon birth, that we are able to face certain things that we're struggling with and find a way. It's almost like a military phrase, adapt and overcome, right? When you're a child, I think that that's what we do. We adapt and overcome in our own way. It's not until we learn later in life what traumatic events are or what life crises are that we realize, oh my gosh, I went through some real stuff. That was
Right.
really
Right.
traumatic. I didn't
Right.
even know. Um, so in during my childhood, My mother left because the environment was, not healthy. So that's the environment that I was left in. And what I learned was basically, I learned how to survive outside my house. If you don't learn what you need to learn in your house, the streets will teach you. And that's where I was taught. I
Right.
have the hard knock teaching of life, in grammar school. I was mowing lawns, cleaning houses, washing cars, pulling weeds, you name it, just to go and get food. My dad worked third shift. When I say he was checked out, he made sure he was checked out. He worked third shift, slept all day, didn't have to deal with me.
Hmm.
So, that was very disheartening all around. I think that I mourned more over not having, my mother around. That was the driving force, I think, that just kind of umbrellaed everything else during that time. But also being exposed to violence all my life, inside the house, outside the house, all around me. I was born and raised in the city of Chicago, in the heart, and that's just what was there. So I really didn't know any better either. As I got older, that's just the same thing: adapt and fit in, right? So I will fast forward into high school years, where I dropped out of high school and was with an abusive relationship. Um, Once I had my first child, I knew that I was not going to repeat any patterns. I was not going to be the mother that I didn't have, and I was going to, do the right thing the right way, in my opinion, and what I thought that definition was at that time. And I ended up, moving into a place that somebody wouldn't even look at. It was a very dark, cold basement, cement floor, brick walls, just a bathroom, you know, but your peace of mind is worth way more than anything that you can buy. When you neglect your mindset and you don't realize that you're in a situation or a space that you don't belong, it's prolonged, and it tears at you, not just mentally, but physically. Our body responds to our thoughts. There's so many affirmations that we give each other, negative and positive, based on what we say to ourselves, what we say about ourselves. When you see your reflection in the mirror, what are you thinking? What are you saying? Those are your affirmations. And then you follow suit, because we all walk in what we believe. And when you're talking to people about you, it's the same thing. You're talking about yourself. Until you can develop a relationship with yourself, that you trust who you are, what you believe, what you stand for, you're always going to be compromising yourself. And I realized that when I had my firstborn, I was not going to do any not going to repeat anything. And I found myself in that basement, just being happy and at peace, and figuring that I was going to work whatever I needed to, how many ever hours I needed to work to get us to a better place. And so about 8 years later, I had got my GED. I had went for my associates. I was working towards my bachelor's. I was doing good at work. I moved out the hood. I had a great support system. Everything was fantastic. You couldn't tell me nothing. I was in my 20s doing it, paying my own bills, had my stuff together. And I met a gentleman. We started dating, got a little serious, and I was pregnant with my second child. And so he was given the opportunity to move out of state for a job, and the offer was extended to me. I had a choice. I could
Hmm.
go or I could stay. And regardless of everything that I was, working towards as my future was concerned, everything changed at that time, you know. So I decided to go, but I said that I needed him to go first, because I needed to make sure that I close out everything on my end, because I had, my 8-year-old child at the time, and I
Right.
was in school also.
Hmm.
So at 7 months pregnant, I packed all my stuff and I drove across country. And 3 weeks later, My items arrived, and as I was in full excitement to get settled in, I found belongings of another woman. So I was taunted all day by that because I could have just stayed home, but I didn't want to make those, irrational or, assumptions right away. So I waited for my child to go to sleep and I said, hey, when I was unpacking, I found some stuff that doesn't belong to me and I would like to know if there's something that you need to share. And then I was accused of going through his belongings. So I repeated myself. And before I could even finish the sentence of repeating myself, I was already on the floor. He was sitting on my stomach, a 180-pound muscular man just sitting on my stomach, straddling it with his left hand around my neck and his right hand closed fist punching me in the head over and over and over. I don't know how long I was on the floor rumbling around. Um, I do know that I heard my child's voice. I just heard her say, Mom, Mom. And the moment that that scared little voice registered in my brain, the adrenaline of flame like
Mm.
just rushed through my body and my body responded in a way that I couldn't even think about. It just my body responded. My mind was not responding. My body just reacted in such a natural surviving way that my feet hit the floor and my neck was used as a kickstand and my hips were thrusted towards the ceiling and was strong enough and powerful enough to get him off of me. I don't know how the heck I got up. I think I just jumped on my feet somehow. But by the time that I got up, my child was already at the bottom of those stairs. I grabbed her hand and ran out the house just like that. I went to the only place that I saw a light on, knocked on the door, and pleaded for, help and to use the telephone to call the police. And I cannot remember where my daughter was at the time, upstairs, downstairs, on the couch, in the kitchen. I have no idea. I was, a ball of emotions. I couldn't even think straight. I just knew that my life was in danger. My daughter's life was in danger. My unborn baby's life is in danger. I don't have any friends out here. I don't have any family out here. I could barely, scout the neighborhood. I was just getting there, settling in. I had priorities, finding doctor's appointments, getting my baby registered for school, figuring out, my new foreign area. And
Mhm.
in a matter of 15 minutes, everything it was like my life was over. I didn't even know if I was gonna be able to have my baby. Um, I would have to say that, obviously, that was something that was unexpected. It wasn't a gradual thing that happened and I was like, you know, there was nothing that would have told me or nothing that in our past that even showed me an inkling of this type of violence. And here I was working my entire life to get out of that. And then I finally, felt that I was in that realm only to be taken out of everything that I know and then basically left stranded with nothing.
Wow.
So, as you can imagine, the thoughts, the devastation, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, economically, I mean, it tore every single piece of me. Um, I would have to say that, I cried all night. I did not get any sleep. I had no idea, what the system is and what them was in that state as it relates to, how long is he going to be held? Is he going to get let out? Because in Chicago, you're arrested and then you're out.
Mhm.
There is no overnight. It's like you're out until you have your court date. Where I was, it was a bit different, but I didn't know that. Stayed up all night crying and doing research. Um, and I mean, I literally had to change my whole entire life and figure things out within a matter of 37 days because I was going to have my baby and I was deemed high risk. I still had to, go to the hospital and make sure that my baby was okay. Um, you know, it's I don't want to go all over the place with it. I mean, I could sit here and drag it out minute by minute, but I don't want to do that. I want to talk about, that
Hmm.
life, that moment of that life crisis, that traumatic event. I went through the devastation for that, maybe 24 hours, and then, reality had to hit. Reality did hit. Reality was, you are out here on your own, and you have to figure it out. You better go out there like a hungry lioness to feed and protect your cubs. And that was it. That was my mindset. And, of course I had, God, why me? Why is this happening? How did this? I know I didn't come out here for this. What's going on? And that was one prayer. The
Mm.
following prayer was praising him, just thanking my God for allowing me to experience a fraction of the pain and suffering that he went through, that I am his warrior child, that I know that there's a plan for me. I know that this
Yes.
was not the end of the road,
Yes.
that there is a purpose, and I will freaking figure it out. And I just ask and beg for the strength to continue.
Yes.
And, that's, I would have to say that,
You know,
if I
I hate to interrupt you because I mean, this is powerful, and your story or your testimony, your experience, I'm sure is helping. Let me ask you this, and you can continue with what happened. But I want to ask you because you talked about what happened, and while you was telling it, it's almost like I could picture something on television of this happening, in disbelief that you went through this, but belief that you survived it. Can you talk to us about, can you throw into this story? You said that you had an 8-year-old child at the time. Do we overlook what the little ones go through when they experience the domestic violence in the home?
100%, 100%, even though I did everything in my power by keeping her as separated as possible, meaning when she went to school was when I was repacking our stuff. When she came home
Right.
from school, I asked, her friends' parents if they could hang out at the pool so I can move my stuff that I packed all day into a storage room. I was
Hmm.
literally packing and removing. Me and my big old stomach. I was like, if my water breaks, hallelujah, I'm great. Let's go. You know,
Uh-huh.
but I did the best that I could. And when I talk to my daughter today, she does tell me that she doesn't remember a lot of that time in her life, which makes me feel so awesome, because that I did my job in keeping her as separated as possible. But she also shared that my laser focused attention to being the provider and the protector all her life, which she respects and appreciates. She said what that did was that eliminated the emotional well being. I was not emotionally available. I was just too busy on providing and protecting. That was a hard
Hmm.
nugget to swallow. I was like, what?
Wow.
What you say? Are you kidding me right now? What? you know but I had to accept what she's telling me, because I had to look at myself and say, was I ever loved? Did I know how it felt to be a daughter ever? I never really had that bonding connection. I didn't know what I didn't know, and when I was put in that situation, what I surely knew was survival.
Right.
I knew
Right.
how to, you know, that's what I
Right.
did know. And I was in line for food stamps. I was in line for public aid. Hell yes, I was. Oh yes, I
Hmm.
was. What else was I gonna go? Where else was
That's
I gonna
right.
go? I'm not gonna live in the car. I'm not gonna go to the shelter with a brand new baby.
Hmm.
You know?
But do you think that you, once she said that that was missing, did you find yourself then stepping in saying, now I'm going to provide more of this?
Oh my gosh, thank you for asking that question after I was so devastated by that. I surely did. I surely did. I did a lot of work in just going understanding PTSD, learning what and I'm saying this because this is now in my older years, right? Back then there was no resources. Now there are.
Right.
So I definitely went and, dove in quite a bit. I had to work through my abandonment issues from my own mother. And then I had to learn, what's called emotional intelligence. People know IQ is how smart you are, but EQ is how emotionally intelligent you are.
Hmm.
So when I learned all about emotional intelligence, I was like, oh my gosh, I can come up with a formula that will allow people to control their triggers, right?
Okay. Okay.
So, so obviously when you grow up in the not so good neighborhood, you have situational awareness no matter who you are. When every time you step out the door, you need to have situational awareness, okay?
Right.
You have
That's
to.
right. Right.
Otherwise
You
you're going to
better.
get caught up.
Yeah. You were
Right.
Chicago. I was Philly, so I've been there.
Right. So
Yes.
you better
Yes.
have it.
That's
Situational
right.
awareness is a must.
That's right.
So I can teach situational awareness. That's not a problem. It's second nature to me. So my formula to being your incredible self is applying situational awareness with emotional intelligence so you can meet your intended outcome. And I will
Hmm.
break that down. You know yourself better than anybody else. When you are triggered, and by the way, there's positive triggers and negative triggers. I'll start with the positive. Turn on your favorite song.
Okay.
Your positive
Yeah.
trigger is happening.
Yeah. All right.
You get the response, and it's a physical response, right? Your head is bobbing, your shoulders are moving, whatever.
Hmm.
You're responding in a physical manner. So for that negative triggering issue, you still have a physiological change. Your body still shifts into something different. Your eyebrows can go up or go down. Your lips can point out or pucker in. You know, you could get that ball in your throat. Your stomach can churn. Your face can turn all kinds of colors. I mean, you go through a very physiological change when you are triggered. And so your power, your absolute power lies right then and there. As soon as you acknowledge that you're having that physiological response to the trigger, you have the choice on how you're going to respond because you already know you don't want to react, you want to respond,
Wow.
right?
Right.
And so reacting can become destructive. Reacting can hurt feelings, reacting can destroy. And I'm going to share something else with you. My situation where I became the adrenaline driven woman that was fighting for her life and her unborn baby's life, and this be your incredible self formula. You know, a lot of people know about the Incredible Hulk. A lot of people do not know who the Incredible She Hulk is. She's been around since the 80s. She's stronger, she's smarter. And these superheroes have superhuman powers, not superhero powers. And if you really relate like their character to human beings, how they're triggered by their emotions, triggered by the economy, triggered by their environment, they either conform into this monster that they themselves don't like, or they retreat to control to control themselves from conforming right into these monsters, into these destructive monsters. That is so much of like how we are built as human beings.
Wow.
Who hates to say I'm sorry after you reacted?
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know?
Well, I have one more question. Uh, as it's no saying that time flies when you're having fun, but I have one more question. Would you be willing in the future to come back and we can finish this? Because I really want to get into all of these steps and how we do it, but we're running out of time, and I would love for you to come back and be a guest in the future.
Oh, yes, I will be.
All
I would
right.
love to do
All right.
that.
Well, we're
Yeah.
going to make that happen. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join the Underground Subway, Agape Garcia. Your interview it was just powerful. I really, I was supposed to be conducting an interview, and I found myself just sitting here mesmerized by your story. And we got to get you back on so that we've heard the story. And when you come back, we're going to talk about how you survived, how you got out, and how you became a success so that someone else can benefit from it. So thank you so
I would
much.
love Thank you so much. I would love to do that. And I want to tie in what you started at the beginning about freedom. You know, Freedom is also knowing where your power lies.
That's right. That's right. We're going to make this happen. Again,
Let's
thank you
make it
so.
happen.
All right. To the listeners of the Underground Subway, I want to thank you for joining us. This has been amazing. This has been powerful. This has been life-changing for me. I have thoroughly, and I don't say this just to say it because I'm on a podcast with you all. And if you don't believe me, we've got plenty of episodes up here, and you can listen to all of them, and I'll prove it. I haven't said this before, but I'll say it right now. This has been one of the most powerful, most inspirational podcasts that I've ever hosted. I have really gained so much from this one. And I'm going to do what I always challenge you all to do. Listen to it over and over again to gain something from it. Well, hear the sound of that music playing, which means we are pulling into the stop. If the subway is pulling into the station, and this is your stop where you have to get off on Success Avenue and Purpose Boulevard. You've made it this far, but keep in mind that the host will be back again to pick you up, and we're going to continue this ride on the Underground Subway. I don't take it for granted that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to listen at work, on the treadmill, at home, wherever you are. We're doing this so that we all can be better. Before we go, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you. Find a mirror before you go to bed tonight. Look yourself in the eye and ask yourself a question. Today, did I do something to work toward my purpose? Did I do something to make myself better? Or did I waste another day? Think about that. No more time to waste. I'm David Austin, and I'll see you next time right here on the Underground Subway.